It's the early 1970s. While NASA's Apollo program dazzles the world with moonwalks and flag plantings, something else, something darker is happening behind the scenes. Documents locked away for decades, whispers from intelligence insiders, and a trail of blurred footage all point to a shadow operation few have dared to name. Project Red Sun. According to the lore, it wasn't just unmanned rovers sent to Mars, it was astronauts. A joint US-Soviet mission shrouded in Cold War secrecy allegedly sent a human crew to the Red Planet long before the public was ready. No press conferences, no ticker tape parades, just silence and a handful of anomalies NASA never explained. Because what if we already went to Mars and they never told us?
Raise your glass to mysteries, cocktails and conspiracies. Dive into these histories, cocktails and conspiracies. Raise your glass to mysteries, cocktails and conspiracies. Uncover those anomalies, cocktails and conspiracies.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, whether you're tuning in across the nation or around the world. My name is Shane Skwarek, joined by my curator of curiosities, and that'll forever be his new nickname, Mr. Philipps.
Baby, he's on point. He is on point with the intros, baby.
It's going to get weaker and weaker for me each and every time as we record these pretty close together, if you couldn't tell by our same clothing here. We are your conspiracy realist, back with another great episode of your favorite sip drinking
Cheers, buddy.
conspiracy conversation. Cheers. Welcome back. Been a long time.
We're going to have to go up with a new tagline, like sips and something.
Yeah, well,
Sips, I got to find a conspiracy word with the letter S. I'll find it.
Sips and I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to think of it tonight.
No.
Problem is, it's not so much a tagline, in so much as the name of the show, and we're trying to
That we
dodge
can't
that.
use.
So yeah, I've been in a war with our friends at the YT, but nevertheless, our last one seemed clear, so we're gonna kind of tread those lines. You can help us though. You really can by liking,
true.
subscribing, share it with a friend, share it with two friends, share it with an enemy. Honestly, I don't really care. But the more traction we get, the less we have to sort of toe that line of doing everything the right way. It's funny because we got some comments the other day. I think it was actually on YouTube, and it was one of the episodes we're talking about. Yeah. And somebody had asked the same thing. It's like, oh God, like I loved this conversation. You should talk about blah, 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 whatever it was. Oh, you know what? It was an email that came into the website.
Yes, that's what it was.
conspiracyrealist.com. Yeah. I would love you to talk about such and such. And it was a topic that I won't even bring up on this just to say it, because I know it's an instant shadow ban. But I had to respond and say, we'd love to. There's so many cool things we want to talk about. We just need some more traction first. That way, like these, when they blank out our videos, if they limit them, it doesn't kill us in our viewership. Because our viewership was dropped to 20 views versus 3,000 our last one got, which might seem small to some people. But last episode, we talked about Mars, and we talked about some of the anomalies that are on Mars, particularly the Mars face is kind of the big one. There is a lot more that has allegedly gone on Mars, and I think that whole outer space astronomy niche within the conspiracy realm is wide open. And so today we're going to kind of continue on with something called Project Red Sun. Excuse me. This is a very lesser known, talked about conspiracy theory around Mars, but it's in relation to Apollo 17, which was actually a manned space flight. And so there's a lot of correlation between the two of them, and that's where we're going to kind of get in there. So to start, we're going to rewind a little bit to the peak of the space race. While Apollo 17 marks kind of the last public moon mission in 1972, some researchers are arguing that the program didn't really end. It just sort of went black, came off the books. And according to this theory, Project Red Sun was actually born out of a secret cooperation between NASA and the Soviet space agency. A declassified NSA document dated 1977 actually refers to a multinational mission to conduct orbital reconnaissance of Mars. though names and participants, of course, were redacted because why wouldn't they be? More compelling, a whistleblower known only as Captain K claimed that he served on a space fleet under U.S. command that operated off planet for over 20 years, specifically naming Project Red Sun as the Mars operation that got it all started. Other leaked communications, including an alleged CIA report, described the launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base, not Kennedy Space Center, which would have allowed for a classified payload. That payload, some say, was manned. Mr. Phillips, this is where the conspiracy aspects, where your curator of curiosities role really comes into play right here. As a space buff, or maybe just a space interester,
Yeah.
have you not only a space interester?
Yeah, I have a shirt
one,
that
yeah.
says it.
It's great. You should have worn that in this episode. It'd been great. Not just our sponsor T-shirt, Trumpet Mania, baby. Has it ever struck you as odd that we launched off, we went to the moon, we had all these planetary missions going off, and then Dunzo Italiano?
Yeah, when we talked about the moon landing, when we did that episode, I think we talked about that kind of at length, right? It's very bizarre how it just ended. Doesn't make any sense to me. And we know, back from, it might be like episode 2, when we covered MK Ultra, is that things don't stop. To your point earlier, they just kind of go black. So it's very, very bizarre to me that we haven't been to the moon since, what was that, 72? I mean, regardless, that's a long fucking time ago. That is a long time ago. And so you mean to tell me that we, from a scientific standpoint, we have gained every bit of knowledge that we possibly could, that we just decided, hey, we're going to stop, we're done? I find that very hard to believe.
And it's not like we stopped because we failed.
Right.
We achieved, allegedly, and that's go back and watch that episode about the moon landing, but we achieved what should have been considered one of the greatest hallmarks of human civilization, to not just leave this planet, but to step foot on another one. I know it's not a planet, but a moon, another orbital rock out in space. We stepped foot there, and then, had some missions after that, back on the moon particularly. Again, that's what Apollo 17 is supposed to. And then just decided, you know what? We got our fill of this. We're not going to try to explore space anymore. We're done. That's it. We don't have the money for it, even though money is disappearing every single day, and billions of dollars are going to people that died at 120 years old. But that's it. We're not going to do anything else.
Yeah. We still don't know what the dark side of the moon looks like, but, we're not curious.
We're not curious at all. That's another great episode we got to dive into.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that. And it's always, as someone that's been very fascinated by space, and, in another life, I probably would have tried to become an astronaut. I was very fixated on that as a child. And obviously we are way too young to have been a part of like the hype that went on as soon as these Apollo missions were really going on. We weren't born.
I was going to say, we weren't even around.
Well, we were too young to like really get involved in hype because we weren't there. Yes, correlated. But it's always been something that's like, I've always wished, that within our lifetime that would happen again. And of course, we've seen strides in that. We've got Bezos shooting up his like penis-looking rocket, Blue Origin. I think is he Blue Origin or he's something else?
I think he might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one Katy Perry just went in?
Yes.
And all those other chicks.
Yeah, because you've got what's his face from Virgin Mobile, Richard Brandt, I think.
Yes,
he's also got one up there, but he's got a different one. And his
looks
like
his almost looks like a plane, though. I feel like.
Yeah, because he does low orbit. Low orbit. He doesn't go into space. And then you got Elon, who's just firing off rockets, who takes criticism when like a rocket fails, but yet he's firing off a new rocket a week because he said if I fail 100 times and I succeed once, then all of a sudden we're going routinely.
Yeah, he's firing off rockets and catching them.
Right. He's catching them in a boat the size of the rocket. Very small. It's a needle in a haystack. But it's gets me so excited for the concept that in our lifetimes, and we're getting old now, so hopefully we may be able to get on a commercial flight and go see really what's out there, even if it's low orbit. I'm cool with hopping on the penis rocket and going low Earth orbit. I don't care. I don't need to go to another planet. I could do that and just be fulfilled, I think, without it costing, $250,000. So I think that's coming. And It bothers me to a great degree because we've had all of this gap from the 70s until it is 2025. You've had all of this time, over 40 years, to make all this advancement. And you're telling us that we decided to just stop. We're worried about all the natural resources depleting here, and you've got an infinite amount in asteroids out there. We just decide to stop. Very odd to me. So the concept now of there being other missions that were going on behind the scenes, knowing what you said before about programs like MK Ultra that have continued to persist throughout time, that starts to make me think, and that starts to make me wonder, have we been doing this all along? Captain K has also been known by names as Michael Ralph, and some versions Randy Kramer, is a self-proclaimed whistleblower here. So, there's no real verification on this, as with most things. I mean, Bob Lazar, we know, all of a sudden didn't work for Area 51 despite having tons of evidence that claimed the opposite. But he claims to have worked in a secret space program under U.S. Marine Command, and according to his story, 17 to 20 years on Mars as part of a military defense force protecting human colonies and assets on the Red Planet. He claims the program he served and was part of a broader operation under Project Solar Warden, a supposed fleet of advanced spacecraft operating in Earth's orbit and beyond, and has stated that Project Red Sun mission in the 1970s was the origin point for the U.S.-Soviet cooperation in space, eventually leading to the colonization of Mars secretively. It's a lot to digest. In 2011, Mr. Phillips, ignoring K, because we don't know much, and his story does tend to get more fantastical as it goes on. And that sometimes is a red flag. I'd love for a lot of that to be true because I think it would be fascinating, but that sometimes for me is a little bit of a red flag when these stories sort of take flight and then it goes from like that secret man mission to all of a sudden like the colonization. I don't think that couldn't be possible. It certainly could be, but it's fantastical. 2011. Yeah.
My bad. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no,
what drives me nuts, and I'm sure
hold on a second. You didn't mean to cut me off, but you shout random shit all the time when I'm trying to actually read something off that like adds content. You shout, but you didn't mean to cut me off. Okay, I'll believe that one. Yeah.
Yeah. But as I'm going to cut you off, what drives me nuts about, and I'm getting deja vu because I feel like we've talked about this before. What drives me nuts about these whistleblowers is their stories. There are new stories that come out over time. Just fucking say it all right up front. Say it all right up front. Because when you don't, then I don't believe you. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's zero reason to fucking hold anything back. Tell your full story from Jump Street and fucking get it out there. That's my take. It's my take.
I'm reluctant to go down this path because I said in our last episode we always divert off, but I want to do it anyway. I don't care. I want to divert anyway because I think that warrants conversation. Because we did a full episode calling out whistleblowers. I think there's three arms to that. The first one is they just don't remember, and I think sometimes right, like when you tell a story, you forget something of it, and you can't come out and say the next time, "Oh yeah, by the way." I mean, we do that right now. Like, we'll tell stories. It could be something stupid about, like, a fantasy football draft, like when you didn't go out to drink with us afterwards, and we mixed the years up. And then the next time we remember a little bit more of that story. And so I think that there's something to be said about that. The next part of it is, I think that maybe it is too fantastical, and maybe that you're injected into this world, right? Like, you and I right now are just living life like regular, normal people, and... Are you playing something?
I bet I moved something. Made a little noise.
I heard
it sounded like a violin.
I thought it was like sound effects or something going on. I'm like, wow, okay. There we go. See? It's jerk off. I'm trying to make a point here, and he has to throw his little things in there to interrupt. So I think there's that aspect. I think the next part is the fantastical part. So we live in this world where like everything's pretty much explainable. When you go and you become part of these like military organizations, especially you start getting top secret clearances, you're now exposed to things that maybe you thought about, but like you couldn't in your wildest dreams imagine that they were true. That's from our perspective. Imagine these things have been going on for decades or a half a century or longer, right? And now you're injected in the middle of that. And so now your story doesn't just go from point A to point B. It goes from point A to point like W immediately because there's all this backstory that has already happened that you just got exposed to, and now you've got to come in the middle. And so there's a possibility, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, it's unlikely, but there's a possibility that those people are like, if I say all of this stuff at once, these people are going to think I'm insane because you don't know point A through W. You only know it as W. And for all this backstory stuff to come in there, I'm sorry, you only know it as point A. For all this backstory stuff to come in there, all of a sudden it becomes an overload. And so maybe they try to like feed it out over time. The third arm is relevancy. When you say something and you get traction, and this covered in our whistleblower episode, you lose relevance. After your story's been told, how do you stay relevant? You can only run the circuit so many times. And there was a great podcast that Chris Van Vliet did with Matt Cardona. He talks about this for pro wrestlers. You know, I love my pro wrestling podcast. But Cardona says something to the effect of when you get fired from WWE, people have three choices. Same things here is you can come out and you can play all your greatest hits. And you play those greatest hits until everyone forgets about them. You can come out and you can just disappear into the wind and nobody knows the most of you. Just forgot you ever existed. A couple of years, you'll just be like, you know, maybe a segment if somebody watches an old YouTube video. Or you can come out and make something entirely new and change everything. You're not that WWE wrestler anymore. You're something completely different. And I think that's really applicable here because that's what these whistleblowers are really doing. You're coming out and you're going to play your greatest hits. You're going to tell that same story over and over and over and over again until people just don't want to hear it anymore. Or you're not going to say it at all. Or you're just going to make something up and you're going to make a new identity for yourself. And whether or not that's derivative of your existing story, you find something else. There's plenty of whistleblowers. I think we can lean that too. That's where I think people go with that stuff. So I'm in full alignment with you on that. I think it's insane to do that. But I've not been in that situation.
Yeah,
give me some access to some files and I'll see how I respond. That's a call out, a shout out. If you guys want somebody to read some files, I'm down. I'm down. I'll tell you how I respond. There's an MK Ultra experiment for you. I don't even know where I was, honestly.
Well, so much for keeping this one to a half hour, my friend.
Well, the other one went 40 minutes, so this is going to go probably the same. 2011. A video leaks on YouTube under the name Project Red Sun Apollo 20 footage. We're going to touch on some of this, but we're going to really we'll see if we're going to do an Apollo 20 episode, if we're just going to stick to this one. I don't know yet. The way that we're going right now, that third one might not be coming. The footage was supposedly shot from inside a Martian lander, and it shows a reddish-hued atmosphere, dashboard readouts in English and in Russian, and garbled astronaut communication. In the second clip, there's even more compelling, or the second clip, I'm sorry, is a little more compelling. It appears to show an astronaut referred only as cosmonaut Ivan outside the lander, briefly silhouetted against a Martian landscape. NASA, of course, immediately denies the video's authenticity, citing inconsistencies in the lighting and equipment, and some video analysts claim the footage shows legitimate analog film grain and movement consistent with 1970s camera tech. Important to remember that. And critics argue, of course, that it's just a well-done hoax, but nobody has come forward to take the credit. So if it was fake, why risk creating it? And if it wasn't fake, who leaked it? We have done extensive research trying to find the original video. Even before this episode, what were we doing?
I mean, it's amazing how all you could find are other people talking about the video and not the video.
It is largely, if you want to see the bulk of the footage, another shout out to AJ. We reference him all the time with the Y files. I don't even have to link it below because if you just type in Project Red Sun, he's the only thing that's really going to come up. I have no idea where he found the original video, but he's got a ton of it. I'm going to show bits and pieces here from his YouTube video clip. I'm not going to do a lot. I'm going to try to keep it to under a minute here, and I may just try to jump around. I'm going to mute the audio for you guys too, just because I don't know what this is going to do. I don't think it'll do any sort of copyright strike, but who knows?
Yeah,
We're about to find out.
You live and you learn.
You live and you learn. So this looks like, basically the inside of, well, I'm not going to say that word either, but we're going to go ahead and play this. So without, you know what? I guess I could probably just play his audio here too. Let's let him go.
Inside the ship, and then this amazing view of Victoria Crater. A few more shots of the crew. Then we begin the descent to the surface. I'm gonna need my...
All right, I'm going to stop it there because that's probably a lot more intellectual property, I guess.
Yeah, that'll probably get us a strike for copyright infringement.
So basically what he was showing is Victoria Crater on Mars, and showing shots from inside the ship, showing as it's coming down for a landing. As you go through that video, I mean, there's so much more that's happening there, and I'll bring up a couple more little pieces of it here real quickly for you. Again, you all can watch this in its infinite glory here if you want. I've got this muted now, but you can see some other shots that are happening here throughout. You can jump forward the video. There's other stuff going on here. So I'll close that one out again for us there. So we're back to square one. Again, we've done a lot of work on trying to find this, and it was funny because Tim, you literally said to me, like, I literally can't find anything but this.
Yeah. I mean, it's like AJ owns the internet as it pertains to Project Red Sun.
Yeah. Congrats, my man. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. And, if I can get hold of that video, we'll put it on conspiracyrealist.com so everyone can see it. I promise you that. Until then, good luck finding it.
So one thing that I do want to talk about with the video, though, that actually I didn't plan on talking about this, but you said something that made me think of it.
Okay. Well,
so we talked last episode about the reddish hue on Mars not actually being a thing, and the fact that NASA, right, uses I'll just use a broad term, they Photoshop it, right?
Yep.
If that's the case, why do these videos have a reddish hue?
I thought the same thing.
That doesn't sit right with me.
It doesn't sit right with me either, and I guess it depends on where you get your authenticity from, right?
Right.
I think the idea of the reddish hue largely comes from the dust. You ever been on the beach during a sandstorm?
Oh my God.
Not Darude. Not your jam.
Not my jammy jam.
But do you know how like the wind sort of lifts up the sand and it kind of puts like a haze over everything?
Yep. Yeah.
Well, now imagine you're out in like the Sahara or like a major desert, anywhere really in Egypt, the Great Pyramids that we talked about last episode as well. The way the sand is made up, I guess with the clay, I think that gives that hue. And so my interpretation of what they're actually seeing with that red hue is as you're landing, the landing gear is kicking up dust and maybe creating a haze or something like that.
Right, that would make sense.
I can't tell you for sure because all I can see of the video is AJ and Hecklefish.
Yeah.
If I can watch that video in its entirety, unedited and unredacted, I guess, that might give us some clarification to what we're actually seeing. So again, if anybody's out there that knows how to find this video by itself, and we found another video that we're going to show maybe today, maybe in the next episode, don't know, but we found another video of something that they found in there during the Apollo 20 mission that looked pretty good. I don't know where to find the rest of this stuff though. But yeah, that's an interesting point. That's a really interesting point. And as I said that before, I kind of thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Modern CGI has kind of been attributed to this quite a bit as well. Could it have been that? Is it too period accurate? And I think that's a little bit of a gray area. Again, having not seen the entire thing, looking at it from the Y-Files video specifically, I don't get the impression that there was a whole lot of CGI used. And by CGI, I'm specifically talking about computer graphics, right? Not special effects.
You would know much better than I. That is your jam.
Think though, right? Like in 2011, the video leaks. So what are the popular movies? What are the most popular like, sci-fi movies in 2011? Do we know? Or any movies from 2011? I'm going to type this in ChatGPT. Most popular sci-fi or let's say special effects movies in 2011. We're going to see here because this is really our tell. Okay, a lot better than I thought. So Transformers, Thor, Captain America, X-Men First Class, Super 8, Battle LA, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Man, I feel old because I thought these movies were a lot newer than that. Jeez. Green Lantern. Okay, so Green Lantern's a great example. The CGI in that movie was absolutely horrific. It was terrible, and it's been lauded as one of the worst movies of all time. If you look at something like Transformers and you talk about CGI, very plausible that whole thing was made with CGI, but that had a box office of $1.1 billion and probably a pretty hefty budget to go along with that. So my inclination is a Michael Bay movie probably wouldn't have been responsible for that production. If you look at something again that was very well budgeted in the Green Lantern movie, which I think was Fox at the time probably, and how badly that bombed, that's probably a better indication of what CGI's capacity was. It was not like today where you can just have anybody use like a little AI tool to create aspects of it and animate it, which even today people have really struggled to do. Not to say that somebody that's trained in this can't do it. I think it's plausible, but I think
There are tells, though, when it comes to the AGI.
Generally tells.
AGI, Jesus Christ. AI stuff, there's tells.
AGI is artificial general intelligence. There will be tells about that, too, when they lock us up. Yeah, I think so.
But let me pose a question to you. Let's go back to the 90s. Let's talk about Jurassic Park. Is that CGI or is that special effects?
It's special effects.
All right, well, never mind.
Those were
my
models.
argument at the water.
Yeah.
All right.
There is CGI aspects in it, but they largely use special effects in different parts of the film. And some of them you can see in Universal Studios. And when you get up close to it, it doesn't really look too much like a dinosaur. Yeah, so, I mean, it does, but you get what I'm saying. I think practical effects are possible here. And I think going out the window, and if you put it in 1970s, I think it's possible to say that it was CGI. I don't think it's impossible. But they still had to have, like, I don't think the astronauts sitting around there was CGI. I think that was, if it's faked, it's actors that are sitting around in some sort of a shell. There's some level of practical effects in there.
You know, that's just an awful lot of trouble to go through. And granted, I mean, we've, there's a million different scenarios that we could come up with right now where there's footage of something and where it's proven, that it was a hoax. When people are determined to do something, they'll get it done. But that's an awful lot of trouble to go through, my friend.
It's an awful lot of trouble to go through, especially when there's been nobody taking the credit for it.
Right.
It surfaces online from a YouTuber named Retired AFB, who's gone now. And I'll do this live right now. I'm just going to go onto youtube.com. YouTube. I can't even literally type the word YouTube. Retired AFB. I'm going to see if I can just find this thing. Retired AFB. Get the fuck out of here.
Did you just find it?
His thing is here. His channel's here.
Oh.
Hold on a minute. Hold the phone. Does he have the video here that we were looking everywhere for? We didn't think to look on his own channel? All new videos are posted on whatever this is, rever.com. Okay, so here is a video. Okay, let's just watch this.
Let's see what we got. Folks, we have absolutely no idea what we're going to watch. But
this is the Apollo 20 video. I almost guarantee it.
It could be.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's exactly what that is. Is there audio here? Yeah, there's some ridiculous music to the back end of this.
Yes, that's the Apollo 20, because that's the Mona Lisa ET.
Yep. Okay.
Which is very closely related to what we're talking about right now, folks.
Right. Well, it's the same Apollo 20. Yeah, so we'll just let this run through the background here. I don't know if this is maybe somebody created a new thing here. Because it's saying this. Apollo 20 new videos updated, new address for future posts. That just seems strange and odd. And this looks like extra crappy. Yeah, all new videos posted here. This has a weird, sneaky feeling that this is probably spam, but we'll type it in there anyway.
Yeah, that's the Apollo 20 stuff. That's what I watched earlier.
Yeah.
And doing some research.
Let's go rever.com before I get a virus on my computer. Retired AFB. And we're going to do this live, folks. We're going to see what happens here. Page not found anyway. Okay. Good enough.
Of course, go figure.
Very good. All right. Well, that is what it is. I think it's a lot of work to go through, and I think it's a lot of work to go through when you're not taking any sort of credit, but it wouldn't be the first time in the realm of conspiracy that's happened. John Teeter would be a great example of somebody that's kind of surfaced and then nobody's came forward to take credit, although we have it on good authority that's probably going to change soon. What happens after that, man? I don't know, right? Like what is the goal in posting that? On the flip side, how do you get that evidence and how do you release it and how do you not have somebody come and bang your door down? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I mean, you can't fucking sneeze without some government agency knowing that it happened, right? So
Right.
I find it interesting that there wouldn't be some more public knowledge about who posted this, and
Right. Well, I mean,
unless
we have the guy K, but
right, yeah, but
nobody's
we
going to break
don't,
this guy's door down.
right, yeah,
So I don't know. It's I'm back and forth on that a little bit. The timing is odd. You know, you're coming out of the Cold War with Russia and the United States. It's not too strange to me that there's cooperation. I think through the whole Cold War there was probably cooperation as well. I think it was probably more of a front. If anything else, it's maybe a topic for another day.
yeah. Look, I mean, look, if you wanted to embark on a monumental mission, and there's another power who's also at the forefront of space evolution, maybe you just bite the bullet and you say, hey,
Right.
let's go
Right.
get this done together, baby.
Right. Especially if you know that, well, so this goes back. There's no obviously official record from NASA of Project Red Sun, but, you know, silence sometimes speaks volumes to us. We talked in the last episode how there are a lot of Mars photos from early satellite missions that have been altered or redacted in ways that resemble airbrushing that Donna Hare, the whistleblower, eventually describes from our lunar missions. So some are showing blurred out areas, others have inconsistent timestamps, so much more repeated shadows, repeated anomalies on there. And then strangely, the mission transcripts from Viking and early Mars orbiters contain garbled entries, complete snippets of code or unidentified test logs that appear to reference human telemetry. None of them have been officially explained. So there are anomalies. Of course, to go back to the money thing we talked about earlier, the Pentagon has had unaccounted for in billions of black budget funding going missing completely in
Since
the
its
1970s.
inception.
Well, this is just in the 1970s. There's
Right.
billions of black budget dollars completely gone. But in its inception, you're right. So could some of that have been funneled into the Mars program? And I mean, that goes back to the question we posed at the very top of this is you have a space program that's booming, and you have people at the height of their enthusiasm for it, where like if you told somebody at the time, hey, by the way, $50 of your taxes are going to go into another planet, of course, let's do it, man. That sounds like so much fun. Now all of a sudden that ends, and there's still billions of dollars going missing. We've got all these anomalies going on with all the images, and that is persistent to today. It's not like that's changed much. And we've seen no advancements whatsoever in government space programs from any country, not just us, from any country since the 70s. Shoulder shaking there. I don't know if that comes down the camera.
No, yeah,
Don't know.
it doesn't make a lot of sense, my friend. It doesn't make
Is there
a lot of sense.
precedent for classified NASA missions, my friend?
Yeah, well, it all depends on what it is that they're doing. Yeah, of course, right? I mean, look, if you buy into the fact that there is non-human intelligence and that, that in and of itself is a tremendous conspiracy, which is probably the most talked about conspiracy on Earth, certainly between you and I, and amongst our group that we talk about these things in. Yeah, there's absolutely precedence for it, right? I mean, if they're going to Mars, now granted, okay, let me take a step back. Just because they're going to Mars doesn't mean that there is life on Mars. But
Right.
if there is, or there's suspicion that there's life on Mars, from NASA's perspective, of course it's going to be classified. If they're not ready to open up and tell you that non-human intelligence exists, why would they tell you at the mission to go check it out
Right.
on Mars?
Right. Taking a step back again, taking a deep breath. I think I'm going to start to use that more. Thinking from the realist standpoint again. The idea of manned missions in the 1970s, I think, is tantalizing. But from a conspiracy realist standpoint, is it also unlikely? And maybe that's a little bit of a rhetorical question for you. Our rocket technology in the 1970s was powerful, but was it powerful enough for round trip to Mars on a mission? Life support systems have to be considered here, and are they advanced enough to keep astronauts alive for an 18-month journey? And then radiation exposure in and of itself is another massive hurdle. And you see that now with Elon Musk, because he's preparing to launch a Mars mission next year, where you're basically the orbit is going to align where we're going to fire off a rocket from Earth and it's almost going to slingshot it to Mars because we're about to align. And it happens every 2 years. And so by the time, it'll be about an 18-month journey, and by the time the rocket hits there, it's because the planets have aligned and it sort of just crosses past the rocket with using less fuel. This is in 2025, and this is who I would say is probably one of the smartest people of all time. Like, I think the contributions Elon will make by the time he dies will outweigh that of Albert Einstein, and I say that with absolute total confidence. Were we able to achieve that in the 1970s? Thinking from that perspective.
Yeah, and also, if we were able to do that in the 70s, why is Elon working on it now? You know what I mean? Granted, I'm not saying that Elon knows everything that occurs in the Pentagon. I mean, I know he was investigating it, but
maybe he does now. Yeah, maybe that's where the black eye came from. Yeah,
he might know now, but I don't know. That's just it's odd, and so
it's very odd.
Even taking Elon out of the equation, it seems quite far-fetched that we had the ability to do that back in the 70s.
Just knowing how government operates, and this is acknowledging the fact that we are believers that there are black ops projects and that the technology in the government is generally far superior than anything that we're aware of. But knowing how they operate to land something on the moon and land something on Mars are very dramatic shifts. And there's a lot more than just getting out there over 18 months. Is you got to get back. That's another 18 months. So you're talking about 3 years on a journey in of itself. That's not including the time there that you have to come up with something. If there's people on Mars, or I say people, civilization, if there's something on Mars and we have some sort of an arrangement with them, or we are gifted some technology, something totally plausible, extracting that from the equation. I don't know. I mean, that becomes very hard to digest how that, if Mars is barren and there was civilization there, that civilization is gone and we're just going there to research that. I think that's difficult to do even over a series of missions, which could be possible to happen. But I almost think that the people you're sending over there are like, they're sheep, man. They ain't coming home. And I think, maybe they don't know they're not coming home, but somebody knows that they're not coming home.
Could you imagine, let's just say for a second, actually, I'll pose a question. Do you think that I don't care what training you have, do you think that anybody could sustain 18 months aboard a spacecraft?
In complete
there's just
seclusion.
I don't think, it reminds me of, I think it was episode 1 or episode 2 of The Twilight Zone. There's a man who was imprisoned, and he's imprisoned in solitude on an asteroid. And it actually, I love The Twilight Zone. That's one of the creepiest episodes to me, because it's like, I couldn't fathom being in complete solitude for years on end. I mean, it would be absolutely maddening. Again, I don't care what amount of training you have. I don't think any human could do it. I don't think you could do it. And granted, you'll be with other astronauts, so it's not like you're alone. I still don't know if I could do it.
There's a movie I was just watching the other day. I fell asleep, so I didn't get to finish it, but I do want to go back and watch it. I'm trying to pull up the name real quick here. It's called The Immaculate Room. Okay? It's from 2022. It's with Emile Hirsch and Kate Bosworth. And basically this couple, this newly married couple, is offered $5 million prize if they go in a room for 50 days, just the two of them. It's an empty white room and only has a bed. There's no phones, no family, only the room. They have nothing else. It's just an empty room and a bathroom. That's it. And then they're given food to like a shoot, which is like a drink that they have to drink. That's it. $5 million, 50 days. And it seems so obvious. Now, obviously, it's a film here too, but it's interesting to watch just the way the film goes on. It's just, how people's minds would deteriorate. And you can see that even like the TV show Big Brother, right? Like people live in a house secluded from everybody else. And there is 16 so people that are voting each other off over a period of time, but you are secluded from the world in Big Brother. You have no communication. A lot of these dating shows are like that, but Big Brother is a longer period of time. It's the entire summer. And you can see people go mad. Like they go legitimately nuts.
Do they have like internet access and like the ability to watch TV and shit like that? Or I've never watched the show. I know you're a big Big Brother fan.
I was, yeah, not so much anymore. But they have all they do is like competitions periodically. But the early days of Big Brother, they didn't even do that. They did like one a week. They just did like a voting ceremony. But it's the people in the house. That's it. So you have the only communication you have is people in the house,
That
and
was
it's whoever that
driving
60
batshit
people is. And
crazy.
of course, everyone's leaving every week, but like the emotional tax that you see some of these people, especially in the early ones, and I think that's why they introduced so many more like activities for the guests in the latter seasons, is because I think people were legit, like, probably going nuts and having nervous breakdowns in there because you're isolated from everything. And again, you hear this all the time with a lot of the dating shows, or not even reality shows, is like they put these people in seclusion, and when it is like a dating show, right? Some of them, again, this has changed a little bit in more recent years with some of them, where they let them watch the show a little bit before they come into it. Like Love Island's big with that; they can watch a lot of it. But there are others where like they come into these houses. They might not be the first group that's in it. They get added to the game later, whatever the game is, and they can't talk to anybody because they can't know what's happening in the game, whatever the game is playing. And so you're just sitting in there for like 2 weeks, and you get in there, and like people always say, like, I would never act like this in public because you start to go fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Now, taking what you said and just like putting yourself in a box, basically,
Yeah,
with
think how
4 or
small
5
that is.
people, and like that's what you're dealing. Like, you're gonna go fuck it. And this is 3 months, let alone 18. Granted, there are going to be things for you to do, and I wonder, in the 70s particularly, you're not going to have a whole lot because technology again was very big. So it's not like you had like a cell phone or a laptop or something you can work on. Not to say that you had internet access out there either, but like it's not to say you had something small where you can like preload a bunch of movies and watch a movie all day long. You're not even gonna have that. Like it's just you're gonna have basically nothing except your communication, whatever you're working on, which I'm sure they gave you a lot of. So
Was Pong or Atari around yet?
yeah, of course, yeah.
So you had that. That's about it.
Yeah, but an Atari was a box like this big, you know, and then you needed a TV that was like this big, so that there goes half your living space for that, and a lot of power. So yes, I mean, I think that the plausibility of that mission is in the 70s is small, barring some technology that we're not really aware about. Then you look at the footage, and again, I really encourage you guys to go check out Age of the Watt Files. We love his show. You just on Joe Rogan actually too recently. Not competition for us because inspiration for us, but we don't even touch that threshold. Maybe one day. So we encourage you to check that out.
It's
That's a really good episode. But there's a lot. Watch that one. Don't listen to it because there's a lot of good footage on there that I think would be captivating. But it's also never been verified in either way. Obviously, we're not taking government verification seriously because they don't verify anything. But if somebody had real footage of Mars, of the landing, do you think they'd either monetize it more, or you would think that they would either try to monetize it somehow, which sometimes is a red flag, which you said before, for a scam,
Right.
fraud, or suppress it more aggressively? And I mean, I guess you can argue that too, because it's kind of been scrubbed off the internet, right? Like we've had a really hard time finding this. So maybe you can argue either of those cases. Right now, it's just sort of in limbo. Captain K, there's no verified military record. Again, take that with a grain of salt. There's no documentation provided by him. There's just testimony. And that's, again, kind of the weakest form of evidence right there. So questions don't go away. I think with everything around this case, like for every question, Mr. Phillips, you can say that this is like a like evidence in favor. I think you could take that same thing and say this is evidence in opposition, right? Like the footage, the travel, the lack of clarity. It's a hard one. It's one of the hardest ones, I think, to dispel whether or not it happened because there's nothing that goes on with it there.
Yeah, look, it's you know, it's funny because there is evidence in the video footage, but you can't verify the video footage, and so it's just one of those things that, hey, it's entertaining. You know, I think it's fascinating. You know, I'm probably gonna watch that episode of the Y-Files 20 times, but you can't verify any of it, and for me, it's, you know, that's tough.
Well, if the rumors of Project Red Sun are true, we may have already left boot prints in Martian soil decades ago, long before our friend Elon will ever be able to launch his own prototype out there to see what we've got. As always, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on each and every social media channel. You can find all of those links over at conspiracyrealist.com. Until next time, Enjoy your cocktails and stay curious. It's another great episode, folks, ladies and gentlemen. So long, everybody.